Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes. It's 2:15, slightly earlier than usual. We're Wednesday, we're the 8th of January, and it is bitter, isn't it? It's freezing out there. Oh, it really is. Proper sort of cold bomber going on out there. Really cold. But we are all fantasy, Premier League, FPL. We're all football, and it is part 29, nearly on 30. Well, there we go. See how many we get before the end of the season. Probably towards 50, maybe 60, something like that. If we keep going at this rate, maybe even 100, who knows. But we are doing all things fantasy this afternoon. Yes, we are. You guys haven't seen me since Monday. Well, if you remember, there was a match. There was Wolves versus Forest, in which Forest blew them away, didn't they? And once again, Chris Wood decided he was going to go to goal and punish me for still not bringing him into my fantasy team. So I did make some changes, as you guys would be aware. And we will see them now. I will see the effects, but I did end up basically with the points that I had on Monday because obviously I didn't have any players from either Nottingham Forest or Wolves. So without further ado, I'll get the screen sharing. As always, guys, I'm on all the socials. I'm on Facebook, AJP85-channel. I'm on X, AJ1985P. I'm on Twitch, A_J_P_8_5. And obviously, wonderful YouTube, AJ Hardy85. Check it out, like, subscribe, and follow, and we can be special friends. Yes, we can. Leave those comments. I did get a comment the others, so thank you very much for that one. Sharing your points that you got this game week on YouTube. Keep those comments coming in and make sure you reply when I reply. Otherwise, it's basically like talking to thin air, isn't it, really? So yeah, whoever commented they got less points to me that game week. I got a bit more, but I think they're Chris Wood, so he scored, so maybe they got a bit more or the same amount. But I ended up that game week 20, which is just finished a few days ago. I ended up with 56. Not happy though, because the average points was obviously boosted through the performance of Nottingham Forest. Clean sheets for them and goals for Wood as well meant that people who had them, and by that I mean basically a lot of fantasy managers who have those players, defender from Forest and goal from Wood. If you've got Wood in your team, you got a lot of points that game week, so well done you. But like I say, my team did change a little bit. I brought in Isak eventually, who paid me back with a goal and a bonus point. Obviously, I got rid of Haaland though, so heavy bittersweet in that sense. And I also brought in Martinelli was in the team as well for this game week as well. Murphy was in the team as well. One teeth-kicking moment is the fact that I benched Amad Diallo, but I didn't expect him to explode against Liverpool like he did and score a brilliant goal and get his bonus points as well. So he was benched. You could say I was vindicated a little bit by the fact that Murphy did quite well in his game. He got an assist in that match, didn't he? So it wasn't like I got no points from the player that I started instead. It's just a pain that Martinelli didn't play the full match neither. He came on a half-time for newyear, who got injured as well. So, yeah. So I ended up this game week with a low 56. Not good for my ranking, which went even worse. It's getting worse by the weeks. And that's what this particular live stream is all about now. I'm going to look at transfer targets. I'm going to look at players that I'm looking to bring in. And more importantly, I'm going to look at potential wildcarding options for me as well. A big wildcard thought process. Even better today, slightly. Although a lot of people will be saying, what are you doing, AJ? Why are you even thinking about that? But I'm putting it in there. I know strategies are there in place, aren't they, for people who are veteran managers, myself as well. You look at when to play, you actual... all of your options really that you've got all those cards, haven't you? You've got the assistant manager one coming soon. We've obviously got I've still got my bench boost to go. I've still got my triple captain to go, free hit to go, and I also have a wild card which has just come around again. So we have all of those options to go. All of those are still available for me to play if I want to. So at some point I might play one of those in due course, but I understand and appreciate that people have particular strategies with that, don't they? Play it this week when they've got a double game week. If you've got a blank game week. I do follow the principle like a lot of people before I go into transfers. I'll just mention this. I do have a form of strategy, and it's an obvious strategy. If there is a blank transfer week, you play yourself your free hit if you need to. That's the best time to put it in there, really, because you're going to have next to no players. If there's a blank game week, you're going to struggle for players. You might be lucky enough to play 3 or 4 players, maybe 5. Again, depending on how your teams do in the FA Cups and the Carabao Cups and all the competitions in general, it's worth just checking that out, really. Free hit is the way to go on a blank game week. Sounds obvious, but a lot of people play it earlier or play it unnecessarily. Be clever with those chips because they're there for a reason, really. As for the triple captain, my tendency, and a lot of people are already preparing this now, the Liverpool double game week when they've got Everton. Yeah, in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully, if it's rescheduled for them, that's the big one, isn't it, really? Double game week, that's the time when you play the triple captain. Unless, of course, there's a triple game week, extremely rare, extremely unlikely. Unless, of course, also beyond that, there's a double game week that's better. The rule of thumb so far, and I've said it all along, is always Captain Salah, ACS. I know it's played safe, but you don't want to lose any more ranking than you're already losing like I am. So, yeah, Captain in Salah's the big one. So you look at what fixtures he's got really coming up. So obviously the Everton game, a lot of people are looking at now. Uncertainty with the manager and Dyche. Maybe if they change things around, it might loosen Everton up a little bit because defensively, Everton are looking half decent. They can't score, but they've got a fairly decent defence, haven't they? So, yeah, you look at the game versus Everton, you think, can Salah smash goals against Everton? Yes, more than likely. Will he, though? Question it a little bit now. If they keep Dyche, question it even more because he is defensively solid manager, isn't he, really, in that sense? You can't deny it, as much as you hate to say it. Dyche is half decent at defences. Attacking, he's not the greatest manager. So I finished the game week of 56. Assistant manager chip, I'll have a look at that at some point. But obviously, if I play my wild card, I plan to have no money left. So it'll be interesting to see when I'll get 0.5 million because that's the minimum you need for the assistant manager. Don't forget, 0.5 million all the way up to 1.5, I think it is, for the most expensive. So presumably that's going to be your Pep Guardiola's, Arteta's, the top end managers. They're going to cost you 1.5 million. And you'll have that big pool, I think, of 1 million managers. I'm interested to see it's going to be 0.5 because 0.5 is going to be the budget that I go for. I don't care who's in that particular section. 0.5, if I've got the price and the money, will be the manager I target, irrespective of who it is, just to get it out of the way. Lots of criticism for the assistant manager chip. They haven't really thought it through properly, been released. Bit of an odd choice, really, in terms of a sort of mystery chip. I'm sitting on the fence. If I've got the money, I'll play it. If I don't have it, then I'm not going to cry. To be honest with you, it is what it is. So, transfer targets. Let's go straight in, shall we? And have a little look. So as it stands right now, we'll have a quick look at the players that are in form versus the total scores, etc., etc. So if you haven't already, people, you're mental. If you don't have, and I'm mental until recently, if you don't have a Nottingham Forest asset and a Newcastle asset in your team, there's something slightly wrong with you. A lot of people would say the same about Everton, maybe, but they've been a bit sketchy of late. Bournemouth are doing quite well as well, but those two teams are the big team. There's a reason I said purely look at the form over there, people. Sells is top of the form for Nottingham Forest. Hall, Aina, Milenkovic, Nico Williams make up the top 5 of the defenders. So from a defensive perspective, you should have a Forest asset in your team. I do now. I have the cheapest asset because it's all I could afford, or all I wanted to afford to play around with my team a little bit. Nico Williams. Now, I know what you're thinking. Alex Moreno, he's on the horizon. He didn't play for a few weeks. He's been out injured, and then he was tied, wasn't he, because of his played Aston Villa. And Aston Villa obviously loaned him to Forest. They may even recall him. You never know. Even if they don't, do I see Nico Williams as being a mainstay? I do. Purely look at the fact that his form is up there with Milenkovic, Aina, the clean sheets. His performances, I actually watched him a couple of times. Not many times. I've only watched him sort of once or twice in the past few game weeks, and he's been really solid on the left. He really has been very, very good on that side. So I can see him potentially keeping that position unless injury occurs, really. So Alex Moreno, I think, is going to have to wait. There is a minor rotation risk with him. I think Alex Moreno will be offered the opportunity to play in the cup matches, which maybe will ease the pressure on Nico Williams. Maybe even Nico Williams moves over to the right-hand side and Alex Moreno plays left, just so that it gives Moreno a bit of playing time. So definitely Nottingham Forest. Newcastle's another one to come up quite recently. I have my eyes on a Newcastle defender potentially. If I keep this style of team, which is set, by the way, for bringing back Bukayo Saka at some point, but now obviously he's not back till March. We're in January already. Can I wait 2 months? Possibly. If I do, Martinelli is going to have to step up heavily, and he hasn't been doing that recently, as he's been a bit sketchy. Didn't play full 90 minutes in the previous match due to sort of not 100% fit. So he needs to start playing and, more importantly, performing. Otherwise, there'll be a question mark over what Arsenal sort of asset you have, even whether you even bother to have an Arsenal attacking asset for the next few weeks. Gabriel Jesus, everyone's jumped on him. He's been a bit up and down as well, hasn't he, really? So maybe he'll come good, and then I'll play around with that option as well. As it stands, Martinelli is my Arsenal asset. So I said a minute ago, Newcastle defender. Who am I looking at? 2 players. Only 2. Dan Burn, Botman. Those 2. Botman or Burn, centre halves. Hall has just rocketed. you couldn't really predict it. I mean, he was doing quite well, but you couldn't predict he'd have done so well to the point where he'd end up being 5 million from 4.4 when I was looking at him, 4.3, 4.4 million he was at the time. He has been brilliant, really. He's done the polar opposite to what Levi Colwell's done for me. I know a lot of people say don't trust Chelsea assets, but at the time when I brought Levi Colwell and he was doing okay for Chelsea, Chelsea were keeping the odd clean sheet. He was getting points. Since that point, he's fell off a cliff by an assist that he got in one of the games and maybe a sort of clean sheet in the previous game, but he's not been consistent at all. He is the man. If I do replace anyone, he is the one to go and the Newcastle asset in. The only reason why I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet is one, I don't have to transfer, and two, because their fixtures are okay and they turn a bit iffy here, don't they, in February. So if I'm going to do it, it's got to be very soon. And then I'll do it with the idea that maybe having Bournemouth, Southampton, Fulham against Newcastle, those are the games. Then obviously against City, I can see them conceding, I really can. Against Forest, maybe not, maybe a close game, that one. And against Liverpool, I can see them conceding. So then we look again after that point, 8th of March onwards. So you're almost planning for a couple of game weeks, 2 or 3 game weeks for that particular transfer. So I might pull the trigger on that. If I do get rid of him, it will be Colwell out. So the rest of the team will sort of stay the same for me in that sense as it stands if I keep this team. Form-wise, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest are the defenders to go for, aren't they, really? So that includes goalkeeper and backline in that sense. Midfield, no, if you don't already, you're mental if you don't have Mo Salah. There's something wrong with you. Quite frankly, I don't know how you're spreading those fees and funds across everywhere else. Luis Diaz is a little bit sketchy. Can you really trust Jota to play more than a couple of games before he's out injured? No. Nunez, you've got major problems if you're looking at Nunez as a Newcastle Liverpool coverage, to say. So quite frankly, Mo Salah is your go-to man. He's been absolutely outstanding. No two ways about it. Even in the game previously, I thought he wasn't going to do much. He was quite quiet. Wasn't he against United? I thought, oh, is he going to score? God, am I going to end up with like 2 points in this game? Because obviously Man United scored. So it would have been a 2-pointer for Salah on, but then bang, he scores that penalty, and you're thinking, there we go, we're in. Admittedly the goalkeeper, he went the right way, or at least it looked like he went the right way. But then, he scored. So Mo Salah once again scoring. Palmer, I brought him in quite late on. That was maybe my biggest mistake, really, is waiting. Cole Palmer, I should have just ditched Nicholas Jackson a lot sooner than that and brought in Cole Palmer as my Chelsea coverage. But I had Bukayo Saka, and then the funds weren't there, so it's very difficult. I also had Erling Haaland in the team at one point, who wasn't performing, but now is. Typical. So I'll be looking at that at some point. So midfield-wise, Mbeumo obviously is the go-to man for Brentford. I brought Wiesa in for coverage, which for many, many weeks wasn't a good idea, but he paid me back in the last game. He didn't. He got a goal and assist, Wiesa, so very good. Made me rethink, do I get rid of him because he's still really a cheap player? We'll watch the next few game weeks. If he still underperforms, he's out. Perhaps even the next game week, which is on the 14th of January. Don't forget, it's a Tuesday. So yes, Mbeumo is the man to go to. Jacob Murphy. See? Called it. Stuck Jacob Murphy into my team. There was very much question marks on articles and online and on Reddit, etc. about Jacob Murphy. Do you bring him in? Do you not bring him in? Is it just a purple patch he's going through? Well, he's done quite well if it is a purple patch. Got an assist in the previous match. Did quite well. I think he's only sort of not scored any major points in one game so far in the last sort of 5 or 6. That's pretty good going. Then he got 3 points even in the game that he didn't get any additional points assist-wise and goals. So really good from Jacob Murphy. Amad Diallo was questioning as well for a while. He's been up and down, but he had a really good performance, didn't he? Against Liverpool, got his goal at the end and got the so was it 2-3 points? I can't remember what he got actually. Let's have a look. Against Liverpool, he got 3. Wow, he took all 3. There we go. Kind of deserved it. I know he was really good. I didn't realise he got 3. So he got all 3 points, Amad Diallo. That made me think, if I'm going to play around with this team and mess about with wild cards and have a weakish team, I need to have an okay midfield. And it'll be 1 5 million player. Would it be Jacob Murphy? Would it be Diallo? So I changed things a little bit. Mbeumo, Salah, Jacob Murphy, Elanga squeezed into the form side of things as well. Gordon, naturally now, there's been a lot of talk about Gordon versus Murphy. I don't think there's a comparison for this, even though I'm a Murphy owner. Quite frankly, Gordon is set for minutes. Goals and assists are pretty much set when he performs well. And in the games where Gordon does well, Murphy won't necessarily match him. It might be one of the other, player-wise performing. Gibbs White, I've been talking about him for the past few weeks. He's done really well for Forest. Starting to score, starting to assist, starting to get involved quite a lot. Savio is an interesting one. I have him on the radar a little bit. I've got him saved in a watch list just in case. and he will be a complete wild card. I mean, I'm talking, I don't even know if he's going to remain in the team, quite frankly. But I've got him saved just because you've got to keep an eye on players who are in form, and he is on form. It's providing goals for Haaland as well. So if you don't bring Haaland in, and you're thinking of a crafty option, I know you're all screaming at me saying Foden. Foden's a bit of a as well. But yeah, Savio, maybe. Ismail Assar, I think, is going to drop off because of Eze's return and performances. Rodgers was suspended for the previous match. Not sure what he's going to do in the next game. One to keep an eye on, but he's gone up too much price-wise now. I kicked him out at 5.2 when he went down, and he just went up from that point as well. Palmer, McAllister, Amad Diallo, Foden, and Bruno Guimaraes make up the top set if you don't have those players. Isak, miles above everyone else. They're saying nothing more than that. 10 on his form. He is right at the top. Pleased to say I got him in at 9. A lot of you guys might have got him in at 8.5, even cheaper than that. Well done you for holding on to him, for more importantly, through that up and down patch injury. Really good. Isak, done really well. I'm hoping he can better or match Haaland's performance over the next few weeks, because it will vindicate my decision to finally drop Haaland after a really good game against West Ham, mind you. The guy himself scored 2, he's top form. So yeah, and I'm a bit sort of disgruntled about the Haaland transfer out just as he started doing well. Gabriel Jesus, quite a bit behind, but still there. Is it a purple patch? Watch that. Watch this space, I think, for Gabriel Jesus. Against Brentford, he didn't do much. Moreno and newyear performed, didn't they? So it's a question of how he does in the next game, which is on Wednesday, 15th, against Spurs. Yeah, I forgot about that, the date it was on, but I knew it was the London Derby, North London Derby this week, obviously. Next week, should I say. I'm very interested on the 15th of January, so I'll be watching that game at the Emirates on TNT. Gakpo doing well, but once again, is he a rotation risk? I haven't mentioned him in the Liverpool circle because I think Slot likes him a lot, doesn't he? Honest Slot is a fan of Gakpo. And when Liverpool do well, he seems to be involved in it, apart from that game against Spurs. So maybe, but he's still a little steep at 7.3. You know, I think his output's not too dissimilar to how Gabriel Jesus is going to be in the next few game weeks. And Gabriel Jesus is 6.9 and will be an Arsenal asset potentially. Solanke is doing okay for Spurs. He's got a couple of goals recently as well. So him didn't do much for 2 or 3 game weeks, mind you. Against Liverpool did well. Southampton, and obviously the goal against Newcastle. Cunha's available again as well, so it'll be interesting to see how he does after missing out against Nottingham Forest. He played 45 minutes against Spurs, and that was a 2-2 draw. I would have thought if he was playing in that game against Spurs, he would have been involved in some form. So definitely someone on the radar, but not necessarily someone I'm going to bring in unless I can wiggle the team around. And then Raul Jimenez. Now, I watched his game, the game against Ipswich, and I thought to myself, wow, this is the old Raul, isn't it? Jimenez, we know many years ago before his head injury. He was really, really do well, isn't he, this season? He's got 8 and 2. Prior to that point, he got 7 in 1,390 minutes. What's he played right now? 87. So he's on course. So yeah, he's on course for that 1,222 minutes this season. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he can maintain that. He's still 5.6, still quite cheap. So that price bracket between him and João Pedro. That era, really. See if he carries on playing, because he does have Muniz knocking on the door, doesn't he? So we'll see what happens. Brighton are looking to get rid of Evan Ferguson, which will probably keep open the opportunity for João Pedro, but then don't forget they've also got Welbeck available, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now, in terms of the points, currently right now, Sells leads the way with goalkeeper Pickford second, Aina, Gabriel, Alexander-Arnold, Trent, that is, Milinkovic are the top 4, so Forest across both of the sections defensively. You've got to have a player. Nico Williams is my call. Midfielders, Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo, Saka out injured currently, Madison, Luis Diaz, Gordon, Bowen out injured, Rodgers, Fernandez, Johnson still there as well, Iwobi, Son, Kulusevski. So a lot of Tottenham coverage there in the top point scoring. And then little bits of Liverpool scattered. And then the rest of the known names inside that as well. So the Mbeumo's, the Sakas and Palmers, and the Bowen's top part of the league. And then in the striker side, I think it's Haaland still tops the way. He scored 2 goals the other day against West Ham, which has boosted his total points as well. Isak very close behind, 119. Wood keeps going, and I've got him on the radar as well. Cunha, got him on the radar, but probably won't bring him in. Nicholas Jackson needs to step it up, in my opinion. He's still in my team for 1 more week, but otherwise he's out. Watkins, again, when John Duran's back, Is that going to be Watkins out of the team straight away? You never know with that kind of thing. He's doing okay. Wieser is not far behind, which is why he's still on my team. And his performance in the last match with a goal and assist keeps him just on there, dangling by a thread a little bit. Raul Jimenez, 5.6, someone I'm interested in on my watch list. Solanke and Delap squeezes in. Doesn't he? Delap's done okay, hasn't he, for Ipswich quite recently? But then again, he's one of those players. Does he need so much assist? We'll see. We'll see how much help he gets going forward. So my picks of this week, we got some big games. Obviously, all eyes turn to Wednesday's game, Arsenal versus Spurs. Huge North London derby. A lot of people are going to be watching that. It's TNT Sports, so it'll be interesting to see how they play. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, so the latest on that particular day. On top of that, other games such as Chelsea versus Bournemouth. You laugh all you want, people. That's going to be a half-decent game. And then followed by, if not at the same time, Forest, Liverpool. Again, at the City Ground. So I think you might find that those two games might be half-decent. Bournemouth are a good side at the moment. They are doing really well under Iraola. Chelsea a bit sketchy, so that could be anything in that game could happen. Forest are solid, aren't they, against Salah and co. Could be a good game, especially being at home. If that was at Liverpool's ground at Anfield, I'd said Liverpool would probably win it. But because it's a Forest ground, the way they're playing right now, you still expect Liverpool to win, but Villa versus Everton would be an okay game. Leicester versus Crystal Palace, not going to get much watching unless you're a big fan of those four teams. Newcastle Wolves, that could be okay. That could be a good, Cunha back. I think could be a good game, Newcastle Wolves. Obviously, I won't be watching that though. I will have the Arsenal versus Spurs game on the Wednesday. And then finally, we're left with a joyful Ipswich versus Brighton. And Man United versus Southampton. I expect United to win, but they're not exactly dazzling, extraordinary box office fixtures. So there we go. Thursday's games won't be anything. And the remember key to this game week 21, the key to that is it is a 6 o'clock. So all you guys are working on Tuesday, the 14th of January, make sure you either do it at work, do it beforehand, or do it when you get home really quickly. You've got until 6 o'clock on the 14th of January to get your teams in. Tuesday, it's midweek, don't forget, people. And I'm quite excited about that. Now, in terms of what I'm going to do with this team, I will do this live stream till about 1:45, which is going to be about a sort of shy of 30 minutes live video stream. If I'm to play around with this team, I have two choices right this second. In my mind, if I'm going to be fixated, if I'm going to sort of tunnel vision, what I'm going to do. The two choices are as follows. I keep the style of the team right this second. I got a little bit of wiggle room with that. I'll leave 0.5 million available potentially for an assistant manager chip if I need it. One of the changes I'm looking at will be probably Colwell out for someone. Gomez is a definite, by the way. I'll confirm that as we get closer to that. Obviously, Gomez out before he goes down in price for Canate. That'll be a definite. I'll confirm all that in due course. But right this second, as you can see in my funds, I have about 5.7 million available. Now I know what you're thinking. Why you got that in the bank? Spend it, use it wisely, get it there. What I plan to do, because the problem I've got with this team in particular is that all the big players are, apart from Mbuemo, are in this team right this second. And the concern is if I kick out Martinelli, for example, and bring in a big player like Mbuemo and spend a few million extra to get him, I run a risk if Arsenal do a haul. I haven't got any players in to cover that side of things. So one option I'm looking at really is sacrificing Murphy or Amad Diallo at some particular point to bring in a Phil Foden or a Kevin De Bruyne for a couple of weeks while they've got half-decent fixtures as well. That will give me a bit of coverage for City because to bring Haaland back in again would mean basically kicking out Isak, which I don't want to do. Or, and this is something I've got on my mind, potentially if I get two transfers, so waiting 2 weeks, would be Nicholas Jackson out and Wieser completely out of the team and then bring in Haaland and a cheap for 4.4 million, probably Stewart. I think he's a sort of fodder, isn't he, from Southampton. Currently injured, 4.4 million, isn't he, Stewart? Bring him in, have him on the bench and play like a 3-5-2 or something like that in the team. That is an option, sacrifice Jackson completely, sacrifice Wieser, who's been good but not great, for a starting forward in Haaland, who is looking like he's on form again. In a week or two's time, we'll know for sure. And then kicking out Wieser from the team for a player who's not even playing for Southampton, who's injured in Stewart, who's 4.4. So these are my thought process. That's one option. So one option is keep Martinelli as my Arsenal coverage, kick out Nicholas Jackson, bring in Haaland, and then take out Wieser for a player that I'm not even going to play who's injured, so stick him on the bench. It won't be for 2 weeks that I make this decision if I go down that path. The next path is to rejig this team a little bit and go sort of wild card early. To rejig the team would consist of weakening it a little bit and playing a little bit on edge, but all with players that are starting for their teams, but won't get great scores like your Ipswich 3.9 million, and I think it's Hill, is it, or something like that at Bournemouth. He's 3.9 million if he holds down that right back slot. So having those two players in the team as my two defenders, two 3.9s, and then your 4.3, your 4. Whatever, and then Canate in there as well. So Lewis, Canate, and Williams, I guess, as those three defenders to start every single week. It means 3.9 on the left at Colwell. It means 3.9. Kwanzaa will go out probably for Greaves. And then the midfield would then be essentially Palmer, Salah, and then one of my 5 million players, probably Amad Diallo. Out would go Martinelli. Out would go Jacob Murphy. In would come some cheap players like Dibbling and a 4.3 million. I noticed that the Everton midfielder went down today to 4.3, so he might be one to come in injured, but back at the end of January, started the first few games as well. So maybe the Everton 4.3 million midfielder and Dibbling or something like that coming in. So I've got 3.9, and then two 4.3 million midfielders starting for the team that they play, and probably the Everton man on the bench. So essentially, my bench players would be 3.9 defender, 3.9 defender, and the Everton man who's injured on the bench, which would play 3-4-3, because my strikers then would be Isak, Haaland, and Havertz. Havertz has gone down in price today. He dropped by 0.1 million, so that actually gives me 0.1 million extra. If I was to play a wild card now and bring in all those players, I'd have 0.1 million in the bank. To maybe bring in a slightly better midfielder, so 4.4 million midfielder like the Leicester man, Bubakar Samara, something like that. Who is a yellow card magnet, so not the greatest choice anyway. Or Burvell over at Spurs, but again, he doesn't play much, does he? So options if I'm playing wild card. So these are thoughts that I'm going through my mind right this second. As it stands, I'm going to hold off unless there's some major price decreases and increases, to which then I'll pull the trigger. I've already, as you can see, pulled the trigger on one transfer this game week. Out went Dragusin. In came Nico Williams. He will potentially go up Nico Williams. I can see a lot of people looking at the Nottingham Forest team and seeing that as being a season keeper if you've got a player in that team. So if Nico Williams continues to hold down, he's done enough to prove that he will play the 90 minutes despite having a bit of a knock in that game. And every other game up to Manchester United's game week 15, he's played every minute. And even prior to that point, 76 against Ipswich, patchy until that point that he started the season. The first 3 games were his as well. So I think he's won Espirito Santo over on that left side. So yeah, that's the plan really. Thought process, I'll let you know obviously if I change my mind. If I do any of those and pull the trigger, you'll be the first guys to know. Price predictor before we finish really quickly. This is what's going to potentially happen tonight and into tomorrow. We've got Faces been trying to go down for weeks now. At least several days anyway. Face going down tonight, maybe. Vestergaard going down tonight, maybe. Van de Ven going down tonight, he's injured. Onana going down tonight from Villa, we'll see. Winks going down tonight from Leicester, that'll be useful for 4.4. He's currently 4.5. Raul going up tomorrow, potentially. He's done really well for Fulham recently. Carvalho's injured, so I don't know if he'll go down. Casemiro is going to go down, potentially. Whiteman's going to go down, as will Pope, who's injured. And Konza may go down as well. Very useful Konza if he does, but Villa defence is a bit shifty, isn't it, really? So yeah, those are the things that are going to happen. Whether they do is a different manner. Mo Salah may go up as well. Kirkes may go up as well. Damsgaard being looked at. Aina, Mikolenko, Gakpo, Chowdhury. Chowdhury's an interesting one at 4.3, but he hasn't played recently, even 1-pointers. So people. So just to show you as well as proof that I'm not going mental. There you go. There's today's transfers and player prices. Havertz went down to 7.8. He was 7.9 yesterday. Irugabunum went down today. He's the one I was talking about, the midfielder from Everton. He's available at 4.3, but he's injured. So, and McNeil's gone down. Another guy who I'm intrigued about, but I would prefer my chances with Amad Diallo if I was going to keep a 5 million-ish player in my side. So, guys, there you go. Nice and fast. It's nearly 1:45. As always, that is the transfer side of things. That is FPL part 29, 2:15. It was that I did this live stream. We did it for half an hour. So I will see you guys on Friday morning, 10:15. I'll be doing a live stream in the morning, maybe one in the afternoon, but as it stands, 10:15 will be the main one for half an hour or so, looking at what's going to go on for the next few game weeks. Remember, it's game week on Tuesday next week, and that's 6 o'clock. So make sure you get your teams in by then. But otherwise, as always, This has been FPL Talk Part 29. Boom, boom, boom. Next part will be Big Part 30. Woo! Pop a party, pop for 30 live streams. But I'll see you guys, you wonderful people, on Friday at 10:15. You guys have been brilliant. Thank you as always for watching. It is much appreciated, genuinely. If you guys want to leave comments, that'd be superb. We'll bounce back ideas, all things fantasy, and I'll see you fantastic. And remember, you are fantastic. I'll see you wonderful people on Friday at 10:15 in the morning GMT. Take it easy.